My husband pawned our wedding ring to buy a limited edition video game, so I made sure he lose everything he owns. He told me he lost it at the gym. Spent 3 days pretending to search for it. Even filed a fake insurance claim. "I'm so sorry, baby. I know how much it meant to us," he said while I cried about the ring his grandfather had worn for 50 years before passing it down. I believed him until I found the pawnshop receipt in his gaming chair. $75 for a ring worth $3,000, pawned the same day the new Battleforge Legends dropped with exclusive content for the first 100 buyers. When I confronted him, he said, "It's just metal. Our love doesn't need symbols. The game was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity." He'd been gaming 16 hours a day, calling in sick to work to play. Our electricity bill tripled from his 3 monitors and 2 PCs running constantly. He'd moved a mini fridge next to his setup so he wouldn't have to stop for food. Installed a coffee maker on his desk, bought adult diapers though he swore he never used them. The packages kept disappearing though. He spent $8,000 on in-game purchases last year. $8,000 while I worked 2 jobs to cover our mortgage. Every time I'd try to talk about bills, he'd say, "After this tournament, there's prize money." He never won any prize money. He wasn't even good at the games. He'd rage quit and break controllers, then buy more expensive ones thinking better equipment would make him better. Our garage was full of smashed keyboards and monitors he'd punched. He joined a guild that required members to be online for scheduled raids. These raids happened during dinner, during my birthday, during my mother's funeral. "I can't let my team down," he said when I begged him to come to the cemetery. "Death is permanent. This raid only happens once a week." He missed the birth of our daughter because of a tournament qualifier. Not even the actual tournament, just the qualifier to maybe get into the tournament. He was eliminated in the first round while I was in labor for 14 hours. "I'll make it up to you both," he promised. He never did. He forgot our anniversary playing a new release. Forgot our daughter's first birthday grinding for achievements. Forgot Christmas because of a double XP weekend. The tree stayed up until February with unopened presents underneath because he never stopped gaming long enough to notice. He'd wear the same clothes for weeks. His gaming chair had a permanent smell. His desk was covered in energy drink cans and moldy plates. When I'd clean, he'd scream about me messing up his system. "Everything has a place. You're ruining my flow." The flow was garbage and filth in a specific pattern. Then came the wedding ring incident. But that wasn't even the worst part. I discovered he'd also pawned my engagement ring from my jewelry box. My grandmother's necklace. My father's watch I'd inherited. Everything valuable we owned, gone for games and gaming equipment. "They're just sitting there not being used," he said when I found more receipts. "Games have active value. Jewelry is passive wealth." He'd taken out loans using our house as collateral. $20,000 for a gaming room renovation that never happened. The money went to limited edition releases, loot boxes, and subscriber perks for streamers he'd never met. He had Tier 3 subscriptions to 40 different channels at $50 each per month. When I tried to cancel them, he changed all the passwords and said I was financially abusing him. The breaking point came when our daughter needed surgery. Nothing major, but insurance only covered part. We needed $3,000, the exact amount his grandfather's ring was worth before he pawned it for $75. I begged him to sell some games, some equipment, anything. "These are investments," he said. "They'll be worth more later." Can't she wait? She couldn't wait. I had to borrow money from my sister while Devin spent $600 that week on a new gaming headset because his old one wasn't spatial enough. My sister called a family intervention. Everyone came to talk sense into Devin. He sat there the whole time on his phone playing a mobile game, occasionally saying, "I hear you," without looking up. When they unplugged his router, he used cellular data. When they took his phone, he pulled out a handheld console from his pocket. He had gaming devices hidden everywhere like an addict's stash. The intervention failed because he literally didn't pay attention to a single word. That's when I made my decision. I waited until he was deep in a 48-hour marathon session for some new release. He'd taken the whole week off work, stocked up on supplies, wore his lucky unwashed gaming shirt from 2015. 20 hours in, when he was completely absorbed, I started the process. I grabbed my phone and start taking pictures of everything. The pawnshop receipts are sitting right there on his desk, mixed in with empty energy drink cans and food wrappers. I photograph each one, making sure the dates and amounts are clear in every shot. My hands won't stop shaking, but I keep going. The credit card statements are scattered around his gaming chair, some stuck to the seat with what looks like spilled soda. I peel them off carefully and lay them out on our kitchen table to photograph. There are so many bills, all past due, all with late fees stacking up. I take pictures of those too. The whole time I can hear him in the next room, yelling at his screen about someone not healing him fast enough. His voice is hoarse from not sleeping. I move through the house like I'm collecting evidence at a crime scene, which I guess I am. Our bedroom closet has more receipts stuffed in his jacket pockets. I find 3 more pawn slips for jewelry I didn't even know was missing yet. My grandmother's pearl earrings, my mother's silver bracelet, a necklace my father gave me for my college graduation. All gone. All pawned for $75 here, $40 there, whatever the pawn shop would give him. I photograph everything, then put it all back exactly where I found it. He can't know I'm doing this. Not yet. I pack a bag for my daughter while Devin screams about his team being trash. She's only 3, so she doesn't need much. Some clothes, her favorite stuffed rabbit, the blanket she can't sleep without. I tell her we're going to visit Aunt Sarah for a fun sleepover with her cousins. She gets excited and starts jumping around, asking if we can bring snacks. I pack her some crackers and juice boxes, trying to act normal, trying not to cry. When we walk past Devin's gaming room to leave, I stop at the door. He's hunched over his keyboard, eyes bloodshot, his lucky shirt from 2015 stained with coffee and who knows what else. I tell him we're going to my sister's to give him space for his gaming weekend. He waves one hand without looking away from the screen, muttering something about his team strategy and how they need to push mid-lane. My daughter waves goodbye to him. He doesn't wave back. She asks me why Daddy didn't say bye. I tell her Daddy's busy with his game and we'll see him later. The lie tastes awful in my mouth, but what else can I say? My sister Sarah takes one look at my face when we arrive and sends my daughter to play with her cousins in the backyard. Then she makes tea and sits me down at her kitchen table. I pull out all the documents I've been secretly gathering for the past week, spreading them across the table in organized piles. The pawn shop receipts go in one stack, the credit card statements in another, the overdue bills in a third. The loan documents I found hidden in his desk drawer go in their own pile. Sarah helps me sort through everything, her face getting more serious with each new piece of paper. We put everything into folders with labels: evidence of pawned items, credit card debt, unpaid bills, loans against the house, financial neglect. It takes us 2 hours to organize it all. Through the window, I can hear my daughter laughing with her cousins, and for the first time in months, I can breathe without the constant sound of gaming in the background. No gunfire sounds, no yelling at teammates, no keyboard clicking, just kids playing and birds singing. Sarah reaches across the table and squeezes my hand. She doesn't say anything because she doesn't need to. We both know what comes next. Monday morning, I call both my jobs and tell them I'm sick. It's not really a lie because I feel sick to my stomach about what I'm about to do. Sarah watches my daughter while I drive to meet Mildred Tanner, a family law attorney Sarah found through her church. Mildred's office is in a strip mall between a nail salon and a pizza place. The waiting room has cheap chairs and old magazines, but Mildred herself seems solid and serious when she calls me back. She's probably 60, with gray hair pulled back tight and reading glasses on a chain around her neck. I sit down across from her desk and she tells me to start from the beginning. So I do. I tell her about the wedding ring, about finding the pawn shop receipt, about the $8,000 in game purchases last year. I tell her about our daughter's surgery and how Devin said she could wait while he bought a new headset. I tell her about him missing our daughter's birth for a tournament qualifier, about my mother's funeral, about working 2 jobs while he games 16 hours a day. Mildred doesn't interrupt once. She just takes notes on her legal pad with a serious look on her face, nodding sometimes, writing things down. When I finish talking, my throat is raw, and I realize I've been crying. Mildred hands me a tissue box and tells me I'm doing the right thing. Mildred starts explaining things in a calm voice that makes me feel less crazy. She says gaming addiction cases are becoming more common in divorce court. Judges are starting to recognize it as a real problem, especially when there's financial damage and child neglect involved. The evidence I gathered is exactly what she needs. She outlines a strategy, speaking slowly so I can understand. First, we protect my assets by freezing joint accounts and separating my money. Second, we establish Devin's unfitness as a parent by documenting his neglect of our daughter's medical needs and his inability to prioritize her safety. Third, we file for emergency custody based on his behavior. She explains that the pawned family heirlooms show a pattern of irresponsibility. The debt he hid from me shows dishonesty. His missing our daughter's surgery shows neglect. All of it together builds a case that he can't be trusted with joint custody or access to our finances. She tells me this won't be easy and it won't be fast. Devin will probably fight back once he realizes what's happening. But she's confident we can win this. I ask her how much this will cost. She names a number that makes me dizzy but says we can work out a payment plan. I think about my daughter laughing in Sarah's backyard, and I say yes. Mildred's paralegal Buck comes in to help with the next part. Buck is younger, maybe 30, with a friendly smile that doesn't match the serious work we're doing. He explains that we need to request copies of all our financial records from the past 3 years. Bank statements, credit card statements, loan documents, everything. He helps me fill out the request forms for each bank and credit card company. It takes forever because Devin has accounts everywhere. While Buck is typing up the requests, something occurs to me. I ask him if it's possible Devin opened credit cards I don't know about. Buck's smile disappears. He says it happens more often than people think. He runs my credit report right there in the office. We sit there waiting for it to load, and my stomach is doing flips. When the report comes up, Buck's face goes pale. He turns the screen toward me. There are 2 credit cards listed that I've never seen before, both in my name, both maxed out. Buck clicks through to see the details. $15,000 in charges, gaming equipment, in-game purchases, subscriptions to streaming services. All of it on cards Devin opened using my information without telling me. I can't breathe. Buck gets me water. Mildred comes back in and looks at the screen. She says one word. Fraud. Buck drives me to the police station because Mildred says I need to file a report right away. The station smells like coffee and cleaning products. The officer at the desk looks tired, but he listens while I explain about the credit cards. He takes me to a small room with a table and 2 chairs. I show him the credit report on my phone and the statements Buck printed out. The officer starts writing everything down, asking me questions about when I discovered this, and whether Devin had access to my personal information. I tell him we're married, so yes, he had access to everything. Social security number, birth date, mother's maiden name, all of it. The officer nods and keeps writing. He says he's seen cases like this with gambling addiction, but never with gaming. He seems genuinely sorry for me as he documents everything. He explains that identity theft between spouses is tricky legally, but the fact that I didn't consent and didn't know about the cards makes it prosecutable. He gives me a case number and says someone from the fraud division will contact me. When I walk out of the police station, I feel like I'm moving through water. Everything seems unreal. This is my husband we're talking about, the man I married, the father of my daughter, and he stole from me. The next day, Mildred calls to say she's filing for legal separation. She's also requesting emergency temporary orders for exclusive use of our house, temporary custody of our daughter, and freezing of all joint accounts. She explains that the paperwork takes time to prepare because there's so much financial documentation to attach. Every pawnshop receipt, every credit card statement, every overdue bill, the police report about the identity theft, the medical records showing our daughter's surgery and the dates. Everything has to be copied and organized and filed with the court. Buck is doing most of the work, but it still takes 2 full days. Mildred says she'll file everything on Wednesday morning. That gives me 2 more days before Devin finds out what's happening. 2 more days of him gaming in that house, completely unaware that his whole life is about to change. I spend those 2 days at Sarah's house playing with my daughter, trying to act normal. At night, I lie awake thinking about what comes next, wondering if I'm doing the right thing, but then I remember him saying our daughter could wait for surgery, and I know I am. While Devin is on day 3 of his gaming marathon, barely sleeping or eating, I meet with Randolph Cheney. He's a financial advisor who specializes in asset protection during divorce. Sarah found him through a friend who went through something similar. Randolph's office is nicer than Mildred's, in a real office building with a receptionist. He's maybe 50, wearing a suit, very professional. He shakes my hand and sits me down and asks to see all my financial documents. I show him everything. He spends an hour going through it all, making notes, typing things into his computer. Then he explains what we need to do. First, open a new bank account in only my name. Second, calculate how much of our joint savings I can legally move to protect it. He says I can't just take everything because that looks bad in court, but I can take my fair share. He helps me figure out what that amount is based on how much I've contributed versus how much Devin has. It turns out I've been contributing way more because of my 2 jobs. Randolph says I can legally move about 60% of our savings into my new account. He also helps me understand our debt situation. It's bad. Really bad. Worse than I thought. Randolph keeps digging through our financial records and his face gets darker. He finds something and calls me over to look at his computer screen. Cash advances, dozens of them. Devin has been taking cash advances on our joint credit cards to fund his gaming purchases. Randolph explains that cash advances have interest rates around 25%, way higher than regular purchases. He calculates the total while I sit there feeling sick. $40,000. We're $40,000 in debt that I didn't know existed until this week. The interest alone is eating us alive. Randolph shows me the statements, pointing out the dates of the cash advances and what Devin bought with them. Gaming equipment, in-game currency, subscriptions, tournament entry fees, limited edition releases, all of it adding up to more money than I make in a year working 2 jobs. Randolph says this is actually good for my case because it shows Devin's complete financial irresponsibility. But sitting there looking at those numbers, I don't feel good about anything. I feel like I'm drowning. Randolph sees my face and tells me to breathe. He says we're going to fix this. We're going to protect what's left and build a plan to handle the debt. But first, I need to get through the divorce. One thing at a time. I leave Randolph's office with a folder full of financial documents and a plan to protect what's left of our money. The $40,000 in debt sits heavy in my stomach, but at least now I know the full picture. I drive back to my sister's house where my daughter is playing in the backyard with her cousins. She runs up to me with a dandelion and I pick her up, holding her tight. Everything I'm doing is for her. That night after she falls asleep, I pull out my phone and start going through the photos I took of our house. The pawn shop receipts, the credit card statements, the loan documents, but I realize I'm missing something important. The next evening, while Devin is still deep in his gaming marathon, I drive to our house with my sister. We park down the street and wait until we see the glow of his monitors through the window. He's completely absorbed. My sister keeps watch while I slip into the garage through the side door. The smell hits me first, a mix of mildew and something rotten. I pull out my phone and start photographing everything. A keyboard with keys missing, the letters worn off from rage typing, a monitor with a cracked spider webbing across the screen, another monitor face down on the concrete floor, the back casing shattered, 3 controllers with broken analog sticks, a headset snapped in half, a mouse with the cord ripped out. I count 15 destroyed pieces of equipment total, each one representing a moment when Devin lost control. When a game didn't go his way, and he took it out on the hardware. I photograph each item from multiple angles, making sure the damage is clear. My hands shake as I document the evidence. These aren't just broken objects. They're proof of violent behavior, even if it's directed at things instead of people. What happens when our daughter accidentally unplugs his computer during a raid? What happens when she's loud during a tournament? I send the photos to Mildred that night and she responds within an hour. This is exactly what we need. Evidence of poor impulse control and aggressive behavior. The judge will see this as a red flag for supervised visitation. The next morning, I force myself to go to work even though I barely slept. I'm at my cashier station at the grocery store, scanning items on autopilot, when Patsy from the deli counter appears next to me during the mid-morning lull. She touches my arm gently, and I realize I'm crying. I didn't even know I was crying. She tells our supervisor she's taking me on break and walks me outside to her car. We sit in the parking lot, and she hands me tissues from her glove box. I try to apologize, but she stops me. She asks what's wrong, and everything spills out. The gaming addiction, the pawned rings, the debt, the divorce papers I'm about to file, the custody battle, all of it. Patsy listens without interrupting, nodding in places like she understands. When I finish, she's quiet for a moment. Then she tells me about her ex-husband, how he had a gambling addiction that destroyed their marriage, how he'd promised to stop, but then she'd find lottery tickets hidden in his car, how he'd disappear for hours at the casino, how he drained their savings and took out loans she didn't know about. The patterns are identical: the lying, the hiding, the choosing, the addiction over family, the financial destruction. She says watching someone you love disappear into addiction is one of the hardest things to witness. She says leaving was the best decision she ever made, even though it felt impossible at the time. We sit there for another 10 minutes, and she tells me about a therapist who helped her through the divorce, someone who specializes in families dealing with addiction. She pulls out her phone and texts me the contact information right there. Olive Rogers. Patsy says Olive understands what it's like to love someone who loves their addiction more than they love you. I call Olive's office during my lunch break. The receptionist says they're booked out for 3 weeks, but I hear myself saying it's an emergency, that I'm leaving my husband and need help understanding if I'm doing the right thing. The receptionist puts me on hold. When she comes back, she says Olive can see me Thursday at 7 in the morning before her regular appointments start. I take it. Thursday morning, I drop my daughter at my sister's house at 6:30 and drive to Olive's office. It's in a small professional building near the hospital. The waiting room is empty and quiet. Olive comes out right at 7. She's maybe 40, wearing casual clothes with kind eyes. She brings me back to her office, and I sit on a comfortable couch while she settles into a chair across from me. She asks me to tell her what's going on. I start talking, and I can't stop. 3 years of Devin's gaming addiction pour out. The missed moments, the financial destruction, the neglect, the lying, our daughter's surgery, the intervention that failed, the pawn shop receipts, the divorce papers waiting to be filed. I'm crying so hard I can barely breathe, and Olive just hands me tissues and lets me talk. When I finally run out of words, she asks me one question. What would I tell my daughter to do if she came to me in 20 years with this same situation? The question breaks something open in my chest. I would tell her to leave. I would tell her she deserves better. I would tell her protecting herself and her child isn't cruel, it's necessary. Olive nods slowly. She says I've been experiencing emotional abuse through manipulation and neglect. That addiction doesn't excuse the harm it causes. that protecting my daughter from this environment is the most loving thing I can do for her. She writes something on a notepad and tears off the page, handing it to me. It's a list of phrases. I am not responsible for his choices. Leaving is not abandonment when staying causes harm. My daughter deserves stability and presence. I deserve a partner who shows up. Olive tells me to read these whenever I start doubting myself. Whenever the guilt tries to pull me back. The process server delivers the divorce papers on Friday afternoon. I'm at work when Mildred texts me that it's done. According to the server's report, he knocked on the door 3 times before Devin answered. Devin was wearing a headset and holding a controller. The server handed him the papers and explained what they were. Devin glanced at the first page, said okay, and asked if the server could close the door on the way out. He set the papers on the table by the door and went back to his game. The server stood there for a moment, surprised, then left. 3 hours pass. I'm loading groceries into a customer's cart when my phone starts buzzing in my pocket. I check it on my break. 17 missed calls from Devin. 23 text messages. I don't listen to the voicemails. I don't read the texts past the first few that show on my lock screen. The progression is clear even from the previews. Confusion turning to anger, turning to panic, turning to desperate apologies. Mildred told me not to respond, to let everything go through the attorneys. So I silence my phone and go back to work. But I can see the texts still coming through. Paragraphs of words, promises to change, accusations that I'm overreacting. Please to talk this through. I turn my phone completely off and finish my shift. That night at my sister's house, I turn my phone back on. 42 missed calls, 67 text messages. I forward everything to Mildred without reading most of it. She responds that this is normal and to keep blocking his attempts at direct contact. At midnight, I'm lying in the guest bed at my sister's house when I hear shouting outside. My sister appears in my doorway looking scared. Devin is on the front lawn demanding to see me and our daughter. I can hear him through the window yelling my name. My sister already called the police. I stay in the bedroom with the door locked, holding my sleeping daughter. Through the window, I can see Devin in the glow of the porch light. He's still wearing his gaming headset around his neck like a necklace. His shirt is wrinkled and stained. He's pacing back and forth, yelling about how I can't just take his daughter away. How we need to talk about this like adults. My sister is on the porch telling him to leave or the police will make him leave. He ignores her. 2 police cars arrive within 10 minutes. The officers talk to Devin on the lawn while my sister explains the situation from the porch. I watch from the window as one officer reads something to Devin, probably the divorce papers he barely looked at earlier. Devin keeps pointing at the house, at my sister, gesturing wildly. The officers escort him to his car and follow him down the street to make sure he actually leaves. One officer comes to the door and talks to my sister, giving her a case number and warning about harassment. He says if Devin comes back, call immediately and they'll arrest him. 2 weeks later, I'm sitting in a courtroom for the temporary orders hearing. My sister is watching my daughter at her house. Mildred sits next to me at our table with Buck on her other side, folders of evidence stacked in front of them. Devin walks in 15 minutes late. The judge is already on the bench and looks annoyed. Devin's wearing wrinkled khakis and a button-up shirt that looks like he slept in it. There's a stain on the collar. He smells like energy drinks even from across the room. That sickly sweet chemical smell. His attorney looks frustrated as Devin sits down. The hearing starts and the judge asks about temporary custody arrangements. Mildred presents our case with the financial evidence, the pawn shop receipts, the photos of destroyed equipment, the timeline of neglect. Devin keeps checking his phone under the table. I can see the glow reflecting on his face. The judge notices too. She asks Devin to put his phone away. He does, but 5 minutes later, he's checking it again. The judge stops mid-sentence and asks Devin directly if he has somewhere more important to be. Devin looks up, startled, and says, "No, Your Honor." But 10 minutes later, his hand creeps toward his phone again. The judge threatens to hold him in contempt if he touches his phone one more time. I realize what he's doing. He's checking his guild's raid schedule. Even here, even now, the game is more important than fighting for custody of his daughter. The judge looks disgusted. The judge grants me temporary custody. Exclusive use of the house. Temporary support based on Devin's income from when he was actually working full-time. Devin's attorney stands up and argues that Devin can't afford the support amount because he's currently unemployed. This is the first I'm hearing about it. The judge asks when Devin lost his job. His attorney shuffles papers and says 3 weeks ago. The judge asks why this wasn't disclosed earlier. No good answer comes. The judge orders Devin to provide proof of job search activities at the next hearing and maintains the support amount based on his earning capacity, not his current unemployment. Devin slumps in his chair. After the hearing, Mildred tells me this is a strong outcome. We have everything we need for the final divorce decree, but first we need to build the case even stronger. I ask her what else we need. She says employment records showing the pattern of his work failures. I reach out to Danny Howell through Facebook. He was Devon's supervisor at the warehouse where Devon worked before the gaming took over completely. Danny responds within an hour and agrees to meet me for coffee. We sit at a Starbucks and Danny tells me he tried everything to help Devon. Written warnings, verbal counseling, adjusting his schedule. Nothing worked. Devon missed 12 consecutive shifts over the past 6 months. He'd call in sick, but Danny would see him online in games, streaming on platforms, active in guild chats. The final straw was when Devon no-showed for 3 days straight during their busy season without any communication. Danny had to terminate him. He says he feels bad about it because he knows Devon has a family, but he couldn't keep covering for someone who wouldn't show up. I ask if he'd be willing to write a statement for the divorce proceedings. Danny agrees immediately. He says if it helps protect Devon's daughter, he'll do whatever is needed. He emails me the statement that same night. 6 pages detailing Devon's deteriorating performance, the multiple warnings, the missed shifts, the final termination. Mildred adds it to our evidence file. The case against Devon keeps getting stronger, built on the foundation of his own choices and the trail of destruction he left behind. With the temporary orders in place, I call a locksmith first thing Monday morning. He arrives at the house around 10, a guy in his 50s with a toolbox that's seen better days. I watch him work on the front door while my daughter plays with blocks in the living room. The old lock comes off easy. He installs a new deadbolt with keys that only I have. While he moves to the back door, I start looking through the rooms with fresh eyes. I find a handheld gaming device wedged behind the couch cushions, another one tucked under the bathroom sink behind the cleaning supplies. The third one stops me cold. It's in my daughter's closet, hidden behind her stuffed animals on the top shelf. I pull it down and stare at it. He put a gaming device in our daughter's room. When I asked him to spend time with her, when I begged him to read her a story or play with her toys, he was up here gaming in her closet. The locksmith finishes and hands me the new keys. I pay him in cash and lock the door behind him. Moving back into my own house feels strange without the constant noise. No clicking keyboards, no explosions from the speakers, no Devon yelling at his screen about lag or bad teammates. The silence feels heavy at first, almost uncomfortable after years of that background noise. My daughter keeps looking toward the gaming room like she expects to see him there. She asks where Daddy is while we eat lunch. I put down my sandwich and try to find words a 3-year-old can understand. I tell her Daddy is sick right now and needs to get better before he can visit. She asks if he has a cold. I say it's a different kind of sick, one that makes it hard for him to take care of people. She seems to accept this and goes back to eating her grilled cheese, but she asks again at bedtime, and the next morning, and the morning after that. Devon's parents call on Wednesday evening. His mother's voice comes through the phone sharp and angry. She says I'm destroying her son's life over a hobby, that I'm being dramatic and cruel, that every man needs time to relax and enjoy his interests. I try to explain about the pawned rings, the $20,000 in debt, our daughter's surgery he refused to help pay for. She talks over me, says I'm exaggerating, that young fathers need space, that I'm probably just jealous of the time he spends gaming instead of with me. His father gets on the line and says the same things in a deeper voice. They raised Devon to be a good man. I'm tearing apart their family. I'm keeping their granddaughter away from them. I try again to explain, but they're not listening. They just want to yell. I hang up when his mother starts crying about how I've broken her heart. I spend Thursday morning scanning documents. The pawn shop receipts go into the scanner one by one. My engagement ring for $80, my grandmother's necklace for $50, my father's watch for $45, his grandfather's wedding ring for $75. I find receipts I didn't know existed. His grandmother's bracelet, a pair of silver candlesticks that belonged to his parents, family photos in antique frames, sold for the frames themselves. I put everything in a folder and email it to his parents with a short message. These are what your son sold to buy games. I don't hear from them after that. But 3 days later, Devon's brother calls me. He sounds tired, says their parents confronted Devon and he admitted to pawning their grandmother's jewelry too. Pieces they thought were safe in a deposit box. Devon had taken the spare key months ago. His brother apologizes for how their parents treated me. Says he didn't realize how bad things had gotten. Olive's office is in a building near the courthouse. I go Thursday afternoon while my daughter is at daycare. The waiting room has soft chairs and magazines about mental health. Olive comes out to get me exactly on time. Her office has a couch and a chair. I sit on the couch. She asks how I'm doing with everything. I start to say I'm fine, but the words won't come out. Instead, I cry. Big, ugly sobs that I've been holding in for weeks. I cry about the man Devon used to be when we first met. How he'd take me on dates and remember my favorite foods. How he'd play with our daughter when she was a baby, making silly faces to make her laugh. How somewhere along the way that person disappeared and got replaced by someone who cared more about games than his own family. Olive hands me tissues and waits. When I finally stop crying, she tells me it's okay to grieve for the marriage I thought I had. That I can miss who he used to be while still protecting myself and my daughter from who he became. She says both things can be true at the same time. Friday afternoon, I pick up my daughter from daycare like always. The director stops me at the door. She looks uncomfortable. Asks if we can talk in her office for a minute. My daughter goes to play in the reading corner while the director closes the door. She tells me Devin came by during lunch trying to pick up our daughter. Said it was his custody day. The director followed their protocol and asked to see the custody order. Devin didn't have it. He got angry and raised his voice. The director called me, but I was in a meeting. She refused to release my daughter without proper documentation. Devin left after 10 minutes of arguing. I thank her for following protocol and promise to bring copies of the custody order Monday morning. She suggests we add a password system too. Anyone picking up my daughter needs to know the password. I agree immediately. Randolph's office is downtown in a tall building with a view of the river. Saturday morning, my sister watches my daughter while I meet with him. He has spreadsheets ready on his computer. We go through my income from both jobs, my expenses for the house, utilities, food, daycare. He shows me what it looks like now versus what it looked like when I was covering Devin's gaming costs. The difference is huge. I was spending an extra $1,000 a month on electricity, internet, and covering bills Devin ignored. Without that drain, I can actually save money, build an emergency fund, maybe even take my daughter somewhere nice for her birthday. Randolph helps me set up automatic transfers to a savings account, shows me how to track my spending with an app. For the first time in years, I can see a future where I'm not drowning in debt. Sunday night, I log into our joint bank account to check the balance. There are charges I don't recognize. $50 to something called Twitch, another $50 to YouTube, $49.99 to Discord. I click through the transactions and my stomach drops. Devin's Tier 3 subscriptions to 40 different streamers are still active. The joint credit card I forgot to cancel is being charged $2,000 a month. I spend the next 3 hours calling customer service numbers and navigating automated systems. Each platform has different rules. Some let me cancel online. Others require me to verify I'm an authorized user by answering security questions I don't know the answers to because Devin set up the accounts. One platform won't let me cancel at all without Devin's password. I have to file a fraud claim with the credit card company instead. Monday morning, I go to the bank before work. The representative who helped me before recognizes me. I show her the police report about the identity theft and the fraudulent credit cards Devin opened in my name. She pulls up my credit report on her computer. There are 2 cards I never applied for. One has a balance of $8,000. The other has $6,000. Both are maxed out. She explains the dispute process. I need to fill out affidavits for each card, provide copies of the police report, write a timeline of when I discovered the fraud. It takes an hour to complete all the paperwork. She promises the charges will be removed from my credit report once the investigation is complete. Says it usually takes 30 to 60 days. I leave the bank feeling lighter despite the hassle. Tuesday afternoon, I get a call from Family Services. Devin requested his first supervised visitation with our daughter. They have an opening Wednesday at 2. I agree and write down the address. Wednesday, I leave work early to pick up my daughter from daycare. I explain we're going to see Daddy in a special place with other people around. She gets excited and talks about showing him her new drawings. We arrive at the Family Services Center at 1:55. It's a building with a playground outside and offices inside. A woman with a clipboard greets us. She's the monitor assigned to supervise the visit. We wait in a room with toys and books. 2 o'clock comes and goes. 2:15. 2:20. At 2:30, Devin rushes in looking frazzled. He apologizes and says he lost track of time. The monitor writes something on her clipboard. Devin sits on the floor with our daughter but keeps checking his phone. She shows him her drawings. He glances at them and says they're nice without really looking. She asks him to play blocks with her. He stacks a few while scrolling on his phone with his other hand. The monitor writes more notes. After 30 minutes, our daughter stops trying to engage with him. She plays by herself while Devin sits there on his phone. The visit ends at 3. The monitor thanks us and says she'll file her report with the court. The next scheduled visit gets canceled by text message. Something about car trouble. The week after that, Devin texts 2 hours before the appointment saying he has the flu. The third cancellation comes via his lawyer, who calls Mildred to explain that Devin needs to reschedule due to a work opportunity. Mildred asks what work opportunity given his unemployment status. The lawyer doesn't have an answer. My daughter stops asking when we're going to see Daddy. At first I feel relieved because it means fewer difficult conversations, but then the relief turns into something heavier. She's 4 years old and already learning that her father isn't reliable. I watch her play with her dolls and notice she doesn't include a daddy figure anymore. Just the mommy doll and the baby doll. Sometimes she adds the grandma doll. Never the daddy. I tell myself this consistency is better for her than having him show up sometimes and disappoint her other times. But it still hurts to watch her stop expecting anything from him. Mildred calls me at work to say the discovery responses came back from Devon's attorney. She sounds different on the phone, almost amused but trying to hide it. She asks if I can come to her office after my shift ends. I spend the rest of my workday wondering what she found. When I arrive at her office, Buck already has papers spread across the conference table. Mildred slides a stack of documents toward me. Bank statements showing deposits of unemployment checks. Every single check deposited and then immediately spent. Not on rent, not on food, not on the child support he's supposed to be paying. Gaming subscriptions, equipment purchases, in-game currency. The same pattern every 2 weeks like clockwork. Buck points to another section of the discovery. Devon listed his current address as his parents' basement, the same basement where he gamed as a teenager before we got married. Mildred shows me photos that Devon's attorney was required to produce. The basement setup looks identical to what he had at our house. 3 monitors, 2 gaming PCs, the mini fridge, the coffee maker, even the same disgusting gaming chair with the permanent smell. His parents are letting him live there rent-free, feeding him, enabling the exact same addiction that destroyed our marriage. Buck mentions that the discovery responses also revealed Devon has applied for 0 jobs since becoming unemployed. Not a single application, not even a resume update, just gaming and spending his unemployment checks on more gaming. Thursday evening, I drive to a church basement for my first support group meeting. The flyer Olive gave me said it was for people divorcing partners with behavioral addictions. I almost turn around 3 times in the parking lot. Walking into a room full of strangers to talk about my failing marriage feels impossible. But I force myself through the door. 12 people sit in a circle on folding chairs. The facilitator welcomes me and asks if I want to share. I start talking and can't stop. Everything pours out. The pond rings, the missed birth, the intervention where Devon played mobile games the entire time. The other people nod. They understand. A woman named Jennifer divorced her husband after his gambling addiction cost them their house. A man named Robert left his wife when her shopping addiction maxed out 17 credit cards. Another woman named Lisa is divorcing her husband over his addiction to online fantasy sports betting. They all have similar stories of denial, enabling, and finally reaching a breaking point. Jennifer gives me her phone number and tells me to call anytime I need to talk. Robert explains how he got a restraining order when his ex tried to access his new bank accounts. Lisa shares the name of her financial advisor who helped her rebuild her credit after the divorce. For the first time since leaving Devon, I don't feel alone in this. Other people have survived this and rebuilt their lives. Requested Reds is on Spotify now. Check out link in the description or comments. Maybe I can too. Patsy corners me in the break room at work the next Monday. She noticed I've been looking at job postings on my phone during lunch. She sits down across from me and opens her laptop. Pulls up my current resume that I haven't updated in 3 years. We spend our entire lunch break rewriting it. She helps me list all my responsibilities at both jobs. Shows me how to frame working 2 jobs as exceptional time management and multitasking skills. Points out that I've been managing complex schedules and competing priorities for years. She makes me sound qualified for positions I never thought I could apply for. Then she pulls up job listings at companies where her friends work. Better pay, normal hours, health insurance, retirement benefits, things that seemed like fantasy when I was working 2 part-time jobs with no benefits. She insists I'm qualified for these positions, that surviving the past 3 years with Devon proves I can handle anything. She helps me apply to 5 jobs before our lunch break ends. I feel terrified submitting the applications. What if they laugh at my resume? What if they see through the polished language to the exhausted woman barely holding everything together? But Patsy makes me hit submit on each application, tells me I deserve better than killing myself working 2 jobs, that my daughter deserves a mother who isn't constantly exhausted. The phone call comes on Wednesday afternoon. A company where Patsy's friend works wants to interview me. They have an opening in their operations department. The salary is more than both my current jobs combined. I can barely breathe when the recruiter explains the benefits package. Health insurance that covers my daughter, dental and vision, a retirement plan with employer matching, 2 weeks paid vacation. I schedule the interview for Friday morning and spend the next 2 days alternating between excitement and terror. Friday morning, I drop my daughter at daycare early and drive to the company's office building. It's in a nice part of town with landscaped grounds and a modern glass building. The lobby has comfortable furniture and art on the walls. The receptionist is friendly. Everything feels professional and clean and nothing like my current jobs. The interviewer is a woman named Susan who runs the operations department. She asks about my work history and seems impressed that I managed 2 jobs while raising a child. She asks how I handled competing priorities and scheduling conflicts. I tell her the truth. That I had no choice, but to figure it out because my family needed the income. That I learned to be efficient and organized because there was no room for error. Susan nods and takes notes. She asks what made me apply for this position. I consider lying but decide on honesty. I tell her I'm going through a divorce and need stability for my daughter. That I want a job where I can build a career instead of just surviving paycheck to paycheck. Susan seems to appreciate the honesty. She explains the position involves coordinating between different departments, managing schedules, and solving problems quickly. Everything I've been doing for years just without getting paid enough for it. The interview lasts an hour. Susan walks me out and says they'll make a decision within a few days. 3 days later, my phone rings while I'm making dinner. It's Susan. They want to offer me the position. The salary she quotes is more money than I've ever made. More than both my current jobs combined. I have to sit down. Susan explains the benefits again. Health insurance starting immediately, retirement matching, paid time off, a normal schedule with weekends off. I can barely speak. I accept the position and thank her probably too many times. After hanging up, I just sit in my kitchen crying. My daughter asks why I'm sad. I tell her I'm not sad. I'm happy. We're going to be okay. I call my sister and tell her the news. She screams so loud I have to hold the phone away from my ear. She says she's proud of me, that she knew I could do this. For the first time since discovering those pawn shop receipts, I feel like rebuilding my life might actually be possible. Like maybe my daughter and I really will be okay. 2 weeks later, Mildred calls about a new court filing. Devin filed a motion to modify the temporary support order. He claims he can't afford the current amount because he's unemployed. The hearing is scheduled for the following Thursday. I take the morning off from my new job and meet Mildred at the courthouse. Devin shows up wearing the same wrinkled clothes from the last hearing. His attorney presents the motion arguing that Devin's unemployment makes the current support amount impossible to pay. The judge asks Devin to explain his financial situation. Devin starts talking about how he's been looking for work but can't find anything in his field. The judge asks what field. Devin says software development. The judge asks how many applications he's submitted. Devin hesitates. Says he's been networking mostly. The judge asks for specifics. Devin can't provide any. Mildred stands and presents the discovery documents. Shows the judge the bank statements with unemployment deposits immediately spent on gaming. Points out the 0 job applications. Highlights the purchases of gaming equipment and subscriptions while claiming inability to pay child support. The judge's expression changes as she reviews the documents. She asks Devin directly if he's spent his unemployment checks on video games instead of supporting his child. Devin tries to explain that he needs to maintain his equipment for potential streaming income. The judge cuts him off. The judge increases the support amount. She says Devin's voluntary unemployment and frivolous spending demonstrate an ability to pay that he's choosing not to exercise. She orders him to provide proof of at least 10 job applications per week at the next hearing. Proof of interviews if any occur. Documentation of any income from streaming or gaming. The new support amount is 50% higher than before. Devin's face goes pale. He looks at his attorney like this can't be happening. His attorney looks frustrated, probably tired of trying to defend someone who won't help himself. We leave the courthouse and Mildred seems satisfied. She says the judge clearly saw through Devin's claims, that his refusal to prioritize his child over gaming is now documented in court records. I feel a weird mix of vindication and sadness. This is the father of my child, the man I married. And he just argued in court that his gaming equipment is more important than supporting his daughter. My first paycheck from the new job arrives via direct deposit. It's more money than I've seen in my account at one time since before I married Devin. I transfer half of it to my sister's account to start paying back the loan she gave me for my daughter's surgery. She texts me 10 minutes later saying she's not accepting it. I call her, tell her I need to pay my own way, that being able to support myself and my daughter without depending on anyone feels important. She argues, says family helps family and she doesn't need the money back. I insist. Explain that for 3 years I watched Devin take and take and take while I had nothing. That being able to give instead of just receive makes me feel like myself again. She finally accepts the payment, makes me promise to save the rest for emergencies. I promise. After hanging up, I look at my bank account balance. Still more money than I had before, even after paying my sister back. Enough to cover rent and bills and groceries without panic. Enough to start a small savings account. Enough to breathe. Saturday afternoon, my phone rings from an unknown number. I almost don't answer, but something makes me pick up. It's Devin's brother. He apologizes immediately for calling. Says he got my number from their mother's phone. He wants to apologize for how his family reacted initially. Says he didn't understand how bad things were until he saw Devin at their parents' house. He describes Devin gaming 20 hours a day in the basement, barely sleeping, not showering unless forced, living on energy drinks and takeout, leaving the basement only for court dates, and even then only because his attorney threatens to drop him. Devin's brother sounds genuinely worried. Says Devin needs professional help but refuses to admit he has a problem. Says their parents are enabling him by providing housing and food while he spends every penny on gaming. He asks if there's anything he can do to help with my daughter. I thank him for calling but explain that the court has custody arrangements in place, that Devin needs to complete treatment and maintain employment before unsupervised visits can happen. He understands. Says he'll keep trying to convince Devin to get help. After we hang up, I feel sad for Devin's brother. He sees what's happening but can't fix it. Nobody can fix Devin except Devin, and Devin is still choosing games over everything else. I spend the next week replaying Devin's brother's call in my head. The image of Devin in that basement gaming 20 hours straight makes my stomach hurt. Part of me wants to call him, tell him to get help, beg him one more time to choose his life over the games. But I schedule an appointment with Olive instead. She listens while I explain the guilt eating at me. How I lie awake wondering if I gave up too soon. If there was something else I could have tried. Some magic words that would have broken through his addiction. Olive leans forward in her chair and asks me a question. Would staying have fixed him? I open my mouth to answer, but nothing comes out. She waits. Finally, I admit that no, staying wouldn't have fixed anything. He had to want to change. She nods and explains that addiction doesn't work like a light switch. That enabling him by providing housing and money and excuses would only let the addiction grow stronger. That watching him suffer is painful, but I'm not the one causing his pain. His choices are causing his pain. The addiction is causing his pain. I'm just refusing to shield him from the natural results of those choices anymore. She reminds me about our daughter, about how she needed surgery and Devin said she could wait, about how he missed her birth for a game, about how he couldn't focus on her during supervised visits because he was thinking about his next gaming session. Staying would have taught my daughter that this treatment was acceptable, that she should accept neglect and financial abuse from the people who claim to love her. Leaving was the kindest thing I could do for everyone, even for Devin, because maybe hitting bottom will be what finally makes him seek help. Or maybe it won't, but that's his choice to make, not mine. I leave Olive's office feeling lighter. The guilt is still there, but it's smaller now, more manageable. The mediation happens 2 weeks later in a conference room with beige walls and uncomfortable chairs. The mediator is a woman in her 50s who looks tired before we even start. Devin shows up 10 minutes late wearing sweatpants and a gaming tournament shirt from 2019. His hair is greasy. He smells like he hasn't showered in days. The mediator explains the process. How mediation is a chance to reach agreement without going to trial. How it saves time and money and stress for everyone involved. Devin interrupts her to ask if there's Wi-Fi in the building. She stares at him, tells him we're here to discuss his divorce and custody of his child. He says he knows, but he has a raid starting in an hour and needs to let his guild know he might be late. Mildred closes her eyes for a long moment. The mediator suggests we begin with the asset division. Mildred presents our proposal. I get the house since I've been paying the mortgage. Devin pays his share of the marital debt. We split the savings account that still has money in it. Each person keeps their personal belongings. Devin immediately objects, says his gaming equipment isn't personal belongings, it's essential personal property that I have no right to touch. The mediator asks him to clarify. He launches into a 15-minute explanation about limited edition consoles and rare gaming peripherals, and signed merchandise from professional gamers. How these items are investments that will appreciate in value. How some of his equipment is irreplaceable and worth more than the house. Mildred points out that he bought most of this equipment with marital funds while she worked 2 jobs. That he maxed out credit cards and took out loans to buy games while their daughter needed medical care. Devin argues that I don't understand the gaming market. That his collection will be worth 6 figures eventually, that he can't liquidate now because the market timing is wrong. The mediator tries to move on to custody. Devin barely pays attention to that discussion. He keeps checking his phone under the table. The mediator notices and asks him to put it away. He does, but 30 seconds later it's back out. She asks what could possibly be so important. He explains about the raid, about how his guild is depending on him, about how they've been planning this for weeks. She suggests he's not taking this process seriously. He insists he is, but his guild only has a 4-hour window to complete this content, and if he misses it, they'll have to wait another month. Mildred asks if he understands that his marriage is ending, that he's about to lose custody of his daughter. He says yes, but this raid is also important. The mediator looks at me with something like pity. After 2 hours, she admits this isn't working, that she can't mediate between parties when one party won't engage with the process. She suggests we proceed to trial. Devin barely reacts. He's already heading for the door, says he needs to get home for the raid. Mildred schedules a meeting at her office the next week. Buck has printed out every financial document. every credit card statement, every bank record, every pawn shop receipt. He's organized everything into a timeline that shows Devon's spending escalating year by year. $2,000 on games in year 1 of our marriage, $5,000 in year 2, $8,000 in year 3, $15,000 in the final year, including the pawned jewelry. Buck has also gathered the evidence of neglect. Screenshots of Devon's gaming activity logs showing 16 to 20-hour sessions. The supervised visitation reports documenting his distraction and inability to engage with our daughter. Danny's written statement about the missed work and eventual termination. The daycare incident report about Devon trying to pick up our daughter during my custody time. Mildred has requested Devon's bank records through Discovery. They show he's still spending every penny on games despite being unemployed. His parents are depositing money into his account for basic expenses, and he's using it to buy in game currency and gaming subscriptions. Buck creates a visual presentation with graphs and charts. One graph shows Devon's game spending going up while his work attendance went down. Another shows the correlation between major game releases and his missed family events. A third shows our debt increasing while our savings disappeared. Mildred says any judge will see the pattern clearly. That gaming addiction is still relatively new in family court, but the evidence of financial irresponsibility and child neglect is undeniable. She warns me that Devon's attorney will try to portray gaming as a harmless hobby, that they'll argue lots of people play games without it being a problem. But our evidence shows this isn't casual gaming. This is addiction that destroyed our finances and his ability to function as a parent or spouse. Buck adds one more document to the file. A printout of Devon's current gaming profile showing he's logged over 3,000 hours in the past 6 months alone. That's more than a full-time job. That's proof he's not looking for work or addressing his addiction. Mildred looks satisfied. Says we're ready for trial. 2 weeks before the trial date, Mildred calls me at work. Says Devon's attorney contacted her with a settlement offer. My hands start shaking before she even explains the terms. Devon will agree to the divorce, will agree to the asset division as proposed, will agree to pay his portion of the debt. But he wants to keep all his gaming equipment with no restrictions, and he wants unsupervised visitation with our daughter. Mildred asks how I want to respond. I think about the supervised visitation reports, about how Devon spent the entire hour checking his phone, about how our daughter tried to show him her drawing and he said, "That's nice, honey," without looking up, about how he cut the visit short because he had a tournament starting. I think about him missing her birth, missing her first birthday, missing her surgery, choosing games over her again and again and again. I tell Mildred no, absolutely not. Unsupervised visitation isn't safe. He can't prioritize her needs over gaming even for an hour with a monitor present. What happens if she gets hurt while he's in the middle of a raid? What happens if she needs food or attention or comfort and he's too absorbed in his game? What happens when she realizes her father cares more about his screen than her? Mildred says she agrees completely. That the evidence supports supervised visitation until he completes treatment and demonstrates stable employment. That his settlement offer shows he still doesn't grasp the severity of the situation. She'll reject the offer and will proceed to trial. After we hang up, I sit in my car in the work parking lot. Part of me wants to accept just to avoid trial, to avoid seeing Devon in court, to avoid dragging everything out into the open. But the bigger part of me knows that protecting my daughter is worth the discomfort, that she deserves a parent who will choose her. And if Devon won't be that parent, then I need to be strong enough for both of us. That evening, my daughter asks why Daddy doesn't live with us anymore. She's sitting on the floor with her dolls, looking up at me with those big eyes that miss nothing. I sit down next to her and choose my words carefully. Tell her that Daddy has a sickness that makes it hard for him to take care of people right now. That it's not her fault. That Daddy loves her, but his sickness makes him forget to show it. She thinks about this for a minute, asks if Daddy will get better. I tell her I hope so. That getting better is Daddy's choice and we can't make that choice for him. She nods like this makes sense. Then she hands me a doll and asks if we can play house. Just like that, the conversation is over. She's moved on to her game. I watch her making the dolls talk to each other, setting up their little house, tucking them into their little beds. She seems okay. Better than okay. She seems lighter without the tension of Devon's presence, without the background noise of gaming, without walking on eggshells trying not to disturb Daddy's important game time. Maybe kids are more resilient than we think. Or maybe she's just relieved to have one parent who's actually present. The trial starts on a Tuesday morning in late September. The courthouse is old with marble floors and high ceilings that make every sound echo. Mildred meets me outside the courtroom. Buck is there too with 3 banker boxes full of evidence. Devon arrives 5 minutes before we're scheduled to start. His attorney looks frustrated already. We file into the courtroom and take our seats. The judge is a woman in her 60s with gray hair and sharp eyes. She reviews the case file while we wait. Then she asks Devon's attorney to present his case. The attorney argues that Devin is a dedicated father who loves his daughter, that he's going through a difficult time with unemployment, but that doesn't make him unfit. That gaming is a hobby enjoyed by millions of people and shouldn't be treated as an addiction without proper diagnosis. That the supervised visitation is unnecessary and punitive. Then Mildred presents our case. She calls Danny to testify about Devin's work performance. Danny describes the warnings, the missed shifts, the times Devin fell asleep at his desk after gaming all night, the final straw when Devin didn't show up for 12 consecutive days because a new game released. Devin's attorney tries to argue that employment issues don't reflect parenting ability. The judge asks Devin how he plans to support his child without income. Devin says he's working on building a streaming channel that will eventually generate revenue. The judge asks how long he's been working on this. Devin admits it's been 8 months and he hasn't made any money yet. Mildred presents the financial evidence, the credit card statements, the loan documents, the pawnshop receipts, Buck's timeline showing the escalating spending, the graph correlating game releases with missed family events. Devin's attorney objects repeatedly, but the evidence speaks for itself. The judge asks Devin about pawning family heirlooms for game money. He tries to explain about limited edition content and investment value. She cuts him off, asks if he understands that he sold his grandfather's ring for $75 to buy a video game. He says the game was worth more than that. She stares at him for a long moment. The supervised visitation monitor testifies next, describes Devin's distraction during visits, his inability to engage with his daughter's play, the time he cut the visit short for a tournament, the time he spent the entire hour on his phone, the time he asked if they could do the visit remotely so he wouldn't have to leave his gaming setup. Devin's attorney asks if the monitor ever witnessed Devin being unkind or neglectful during visits. The monitor admits he wasn't unkind, just absent, physically present but mentally somewhere else. The trial continues into the second day. More evidence, more testimony, more documentation of 3 years of addiction and neglect. By the end, Devin looks defeated. His attorney looks exhausted. The judge says she'll issue her ruling within a week. The ruling comes 5 days later. Full legal and primary physical custody to me. Supervised visitation for Devin contingent on him completing addiction treatment and maintaining stable employment for at least 6 months. The house stays with me. Devin is responsible for his portion of the marital debt. The gaming equipment stays with him since Mildred argued I have no use for it, and selling it wouldn't cover the debt anyway. Child support is set based on imputed income since Devin is voluntarily unemployed. The judge includes a note in her order. States that gaming addiction is a serious issue that requires professional treatment. That Devin's inability to prioritize his child's needs over gaming demonstrates he is currently unfit for unsupervised parenting time. That she hopes he will seek help and rebuild his relationship with his daughter. But until he does, the supervised visitation will remain in place. Mildred reads me the order over the phone. I'm at work, so I step outside to take the call. When she finishes, I just stand there holding my phone. It's over. The marriage is legally over. My daughter is safe. Our finances are protected. I won. But winning feels hollow, because Devin didn't show up to hear the ruling. Didn't call his attorney to ask about it. According to Mildred, his attorney had to email him the order 3 times before Devin responded. And his only question was whether the order affected his gaming equipment. Not his daughter, not his marriage, not his life falling apart, just his games. I leave the courthouse after signing the final paperwork. Mildred shakes my hand, says I did the right thing, that my daughter is lucky to have a parent willing to protect her. Buck gives me a thumbs up. I walk to my car in the parking garage, sit behind the wheel for a long time before starting the engine. The relief is there, huge and overwhelming. No more debt, no more lies, no more watching Devin choose games over everything else. But the sadness is there too. I married him believing we'd build a life together, have a family, grow old together. Instead, I'm 29 and divorced with a toddler and a mountain of debt to pay off. He chose this. I remind myself of that. He chose games over his wife, over his daughter, over his job and his health and his future. I gave him chances. His family gave him chances. He chose games every single time. Starting the car feels like closing a door. Driving away from the courthouse feels like the end of something. Not just the marriage, but the hope that he'd ever change, that he'd ever choose us. I drive home to my daughter, to our house that's finally just ours, to a future that's uncertain, but at least it's ours to build. I take the next week off work. My boss approves it immediately, says I've earned it after everything I've been through. The first morning I sleep until 8, which feels like a luxury. My daughter wakes me up by climbing into bed and asking for pancakes. We make them together. She cracks the eggs. I mix the batter. We eat them at the kitchen table with syrup and strawberries. No gaming sounds in the background. No tension. No walking on eggshells. Just us. We go to the park after breakfast. She runs straight for the swings. I push her higher and higher while she squeals with joy. Other parents are there with their kids. I don't know any of them, but we smile at each other. That universal parent acknowledgement. We're all just trying our best. We spend an hour at the park. Then we go home and she helps me bake cookies. Chocolate chip, her favorite. She stands on a stool next to me at the counter, dumps in the chocolate chips, licks the spoon, gets flour on her nose. The cookies come out perfect. We eat 3 each while they're still warm. That afternoon, we build a fort in the living room, use couch cushions and blankets and chairs. She crawls inside and declares it her castle. I'm invited in as a guest. We play pretend for an hour. She's the queen. I'm the visiting knight. The fort stays up for 3 days. We eat dinner inside it, read books inside it. She falls asleep inside it one night and I carry her to bed. The week passes in a blur of simple moments. Coloring books, playground visits, afternoon naps, movie nights, bath time without rushing, bedtime stories without interruptions. It's peaceful in a way our house has never been peaceful before. My daughter blooms in the attention. She talks more, laughs more, asks fewer anxious questions. On the last day of my week off, she tells me she's happy. We're lying in the fort reading a book. She just says it out of nowhere. I'm happy, Mommy. I hug her tight. Tell her I'm happy too. And I mean it. For the first time in years, I actually mean it. I go back to work Monday morning. The office feels different. Like I'm different. My coworkers know about the divorce because Patsy told a few people when I was struggling. They're nice about it. Nobody asks too many questions. I sit at my desk and open my email and get back to work. It feels good to have something normal to focus on. Something I'm good at. Something that doesn't involve lawyers or courts or divorce papers. My boss stops by my desk around 10 to check in. She asks how I'm doing. I tell her I'm okay. Better than okay, actually. She smiles and says she's glad to hear it. Says I seem lighter. I realize she's right. I feel lighter, like I've been carrying something heavy for years and finally put it down. Thursday afternoon, Olive's office calls to confirm my appointment for the next day. I almost forgot about it. I've been so busy with work, and my daughter and just living that therapy slipped my mind. I show up Friday at 3. Olive greets me in the waiting room and walks me back to her office. I sit in my usual chair. She asks how I've been since the trial. I tell her about the week off, the pancakes and the park and the fort in the living room, the simple, peaceful moments with my daughter. Then I tell her about going back to work. How normal it felt, how good it felt, but also how weird it is that my marriage is over, that I'm divorced, that this is my life now. Olive nods. She says it's normal to feel multiple things at once, relief and grief, hope and fear, victory and loss. She reminds me that healing isn't a straight line. Some days will feel great, some days will feel hard. Both are okay. Both are part of the process. I ask her if it's wrong that I feel relieved more than sad. She says no. She says relief is appropriate when you've escaped a harmful situation, that I can mourn the marriage I thought I had while also being grateful it's over. The two feelings can exist together. We talk about my daughter, how happy she seems, how much more relaxed our home feels. Olive says children are resilient, but they also absorb stress from their environment. Removing that constant tension was good for her development, good for both of us. I leave her office feeling validated, like my feelings make sense, like I'm on the right path even though it's scary and new. Saturday, my sister calls. She wants to have everyone over for dinner, to celebrate the divorce being finalized. I'm not sure celebration is the right word, but I agree. She says just close family, her husband and kids, our parents, me and my daughter, nobody else. Keep it small and supportive. I arrive at 6. My daughter runs straight to her cousins. They disappear upstairs to play. My sister hands me a glass of wine. Our mom hugs me tight. Our dad pats my shoulder and says he's proud of me. We eat in the dining room. Pot roast and mashed potatoes and green beans. Comfort food. My sister's husband asks about work. I tell him about the new job, the better pay, the benefits. He seems genuinely happy for me. After dinner, my sister brings out a cake. It says congratulations in blue frosting. I laugh. It's absurd to have a divorce cake, but also it's perfect. My sister cuts slices for everyone. My daughter comes downstairs and asks why we have cake. I tell her we're celebrating Mommy's new job. She accepts this explanation and eats her slice happily. Later, while the kids watch a movie, my sister and I sit on her back porch. She tells me she's been worried about me for years, that she watched me get smaller and quieter as my marriage got worse, that she's glad to see me coming back to myself. I tell her I couldn't have done any of this without her support, without the money she loaned me, without her believing me when I finally admitted how bad things were. She waves this off, says that's what family does. But I need her to know how much it meant, how much it still means. She squeezes my hand. We sit there in comfortable silence watching fireflies in her backyard. The following week, I start making changes to the house. Small things at first. I buy new throw pillows for the couch, a new rug for the living room. I take down the curtains that came with the house when we bought it 5 years ago. My daughter and I go to the home store together. She picks out new curtains for her room, pink with white flowers. We hang them that afternoon. She stands back and claps her hands, says her room looks pretty. Next weekend, we tackle the living room. I buy paint, a cheerful yellow that makes the whole space feel brighter. My sister comes over to help. We move furniture, lay down drop cloths, spend Saturday painting while my daughter plays at our parents' house. The yellow looks amazing. It transforms the room completely. Makes it feel like a different house. Our house. Not the house where my husband gamed 16 hours a day. Not the house full of broken controllers and moldy plates. A fresh, clean space where my daughter and I are building our new life. We paint her room the next weekend. She chooses light purple. I let her help with the painting. She gets more paint on herself than the walls, but she's so proud of her contribution. We hang the pink flowered curtains. Arrange her stuffed animals on her bed. She declares it the best room ever. I agree. Work gets busier. My boss assigns me to a new project. It's challenging but good. Keeps me focused. Keeps me moving forward. Patsy and I eat lunch together most days. She tells me about her kids, her ex-husband who actually pays child support on time now, her dating life, which sounds exhausting but also kind of fun. One day she invites me to a group hangout, says it's other single parents from her neighborhood. They meet up once a month for dinner or drinks, just adults talking about adult things without kids around. I'm nervous, but I agree. The group meets at a casual restaurant Thursday night. There are 6 of us total, 3 women and 3 men. Everyone has kids ranging from toddlers to teenagers. Everyone is divorced or separated. We order appetizers and drinks, talk about work and kids and the challenges of co-parenting or solo parenting. One woman named Jennifer shares about her ex who refuses to follow the custody schedule. Another woman sympathizes, says her ex does the same thing. One of the men talks about how hard it is to date as a single dad. Everyone laughs and shares their own dating disasters. I mostly listen. It feels good to be around people who understand, who don't judge, who have been through similar struggles. After dinner, Patsy walks me to my car, asks if I had fun. I tell her I did, more than I expected. She says the group meets the first Thursday of every month, that I should come again. I tell her I will. 3 months pass. Fall arrives. My daughter starts preschool. I drop her off every morning before work, pick her up every afternoon. We have a routine now. Breakfast together, school and work, dinner and bath time, stories before bed. It's simple and predictable and exactly what we both need. One afternoon in late October, my phone rings. Unknown number. I almost don't answer, but something makes me pick up. It's my ex-brother-in-law. He sounds uncomfortable, apologizes for calling, says he thought I should know that his parents kicked out his brother, that my ex-husband is no longer living in their basement. I ask what happened. He explains that his parents set rules about gaming time, told my ex he needed to limit his hours, look for work, contribute to the household. My ex refused, kept gaming all night, sleeping all day. His parents finally had enough, gave him 30 days to find somewhere else to live. He didn't look, didn't try, just kept gaming. So they packed his stuff and told him to leave. Now he's couch surfing with friends from his gaming guild, still unemployed, still gaming constantly. My ex-brother-in-law sounds worried, asks if I think his brother will ever get help. I don't know what to say. I tell him I hope so. But that getting help has to be his choice. Nobody can force him. We hang up. I sit in my car outside the preschool for a few minutes processing this information. Part of me feels concerned, worried about what will happen to my ex. But mostly I feel detached, like this is someone else's problem now, not mine. That night after my daughter goes to bed, I call Olive, tell her about the phone call, about my ex getting kicked out, about him couch surfing and still gaming, about my mixed feelings. Olive listens. Then she reminds me that this is the natural result of his choices, that addiction has consequences, that I can't save him from himself. She asks if I feel responsible for his situation. I admit that part of me does, that I wonder if leaving made things worse for him. Olive says leaving didn't make things worse. It removed me and my daughter from a harmful situation. What my ex does now is his responsibility, not mine. My responsibility is to my daughter, to our stability, to building a healthy life for us. She's right. I know she's right. But it's still hard to let go completely. To accept that I can't fix him, that I never could. Olive reminds me that I tried for years, that I gave him chances, that his family gave him chances, That he chose games every time. That pattern won't change until he decides to change it. And that decision has nothing to do with me. I thank her. Hang up feeling clearer, more certain. I made the right choice for me and my daughter. Whatever happens to my ex now is not my burden to carry. The next week, I have a parent-teacher conference at my daughter's preschool. Her teacher, Mrs. Anderson, asks to speak with me. I'm nervous, worried something is wrong, but Mrs. Anderson smiles when I sit down. She tells me my daughter is doing wonderfully, making friends, participating in activities, following directions. Then she says something that makes my throat tight. She says my daughter seems so much happier and more engaged than she did during the trial period at the beginning of the year. That the change is remarkable. I realize my daughter did a trial week at this preschool back in August, right after the divorce was finalized. Mrs. Anderson was her teacher then too. She saw my daughter during that transition period, saw the anxiety and the quiet behavior. Now 2 months later, my daughter is thriving. Mrs. Anderson doesn't know our whole story, but she can see the difference. I thank her. Tell her how much we appreciate the stable environment she provides. Drive home with tears in my eyes. Good tears. Validation that leaving was the right choice. That my daughter is better off. That we're both better off. Friday afternoon, my sister texts asking if we want to come for the weekend. I check with my daughter. She gets excited about playing with her cousins. We pack bags, drive to my sister's house, spend Saturday at a pumpkin patch. The kids run through a corn maze, pick out pumpkins, drink apple cider. My daughter laughs constantly, holds her cousin's hand, doesn't ask about her father once. That night after the kids go to bed, my sister and I sit in her living room. She comments on how different my daughter seems, how much more confident and carefree. I tell her about the teacher conference, about Mrs. Anderson noticing the same thing. My sister says kids need consistency, stability, attention. Things my daughter didn't have when my ex was gaming all the time. Things she has now. I watch my daughter sleep that night in my sister's guest room. She looks peaceful. No anxious dreams, no restless tossing. Just deep, calm sleep. I realize we're both sleeping better now. Both lighter without the constant tension. Both building a life that feels safe and steady. Monday morning, I meet with Randolph at his office. He helped me navigate the financial mess during the divorce. Now he wants to talk about planning for the future. He pulls up spreadsheets showing my current financial situation, the debt that's being paid down, the income from my job, the child support that's supposed to come but doesn't. He suggests setting up a college savings account for my daughter. Shows me how automatic contributions from each paycheck would grow over time. Even small amounts add up. I agree. We set it up right there. $50 per paycheck going into an education fund. It doesn't sound like much, but Randolph shows me the projections. By the time my daughter is 18, it could be $20,000 or more. Enough for a year or two of college. Maybe more if she gets scholarships. I leave his office feeling hopeful. Like I'm not just surviving anymore. I'm planning, building, creating a future for us. 6 months after the divorce is finalized, I wake up on a Saturday morning and realize I'm happy. Actually, genuinely happy. Not just okay. Not just managing. Happy. My daughter climbs into bed with me. Asks for pancakes. We make them together like we do most weekends. Eat them at our kitchen table in our cheerful yellow living room. The house is clean, organized, peaceful. No gaming sounds, no tension, no walking on eggshells. Just us living our life. My job is going well. I got a small raise last month. My boss says I'm doing excellent work. My daughter is thriving at preschool, making friends, learning, growing. We have routines that work. A home that feels safe. A future that looks bright. I'm building a life based on stability and presence instead of chaos and neglect. And it feels good. It feels right. It feels like we're exactly where we're supposed to be. 3 months pass after the court date. My daughter and I settle into our life. The house stays quiet. No gaming sounds through the walls. No tension hanging in the air. I get an email from the family court about Devin's supervised visitation status. His rights expired last week. He never finished the addiction treatment the judge ordered. Never got stable work. Never showed he could prioritize our daughter over gaming. His lawyer filed paperwork asking for more time. The judge denied it. Said there was no proof of any progress. No evidence Devin even tried to meet the requirements. The order says he can reapply if he completes treatment and maintains employment for 6 months. But he has to appeal within 30 days. The deadline passes. No appeal comes. I stare at the notice for a long time. He chose gaming over seeing his daughter. Actually chose it. Not in some abstract way. In a literal, documented, legal way. The court gave him a path back to her life. He just had to do treatment and get a job. He couldn't do it. Wouldn't do it. I feel this weight in my chest. Not anger anymore. Just sadness. Our daughter deserves a parent who shows up. who puts her first, who remembers her birthday and comes to her school events. I'm that parent now. I have to be. She comes running into the kitchen asking for a snack. I get her apple slices and peanut butter. She sits at the table swinging her legs and chatting about her day at preschool. Some kid shared blocks with her. They built a tower. It fell down and they laughed. Simple kid stuff. Normal kid stuff. She's happy. She doesn't ask about Devin anymore. Doesn't wonder when Daddy's coming back. She adjusted faster than I expected. Kids are like that when they finally get consistency. I make pancakes Saturday morning like I always do now. My daughter helps me crack eggs into the bowl. Gets shells in there and we fish them out together. She pours in milk. Stirs with the big wooden spoon. We make funny shapes on the griddle. A cat. A flower. Something that might be a dinosaur. We eat them with syrup and butter. She gets it all over her face. I wipe it off and she giggles. After breakfast, we go to the children's museum. She runs straight to the water table. Plays with the boats and dams for an hour. Gets completely soaked. I brought extra clothes. We change in the bathroom and she wants to see the dinosaur exhibit next. We look at fossils. She asks questions I don't know how to answer. I read the plaques out loud. We make up stories about what the dinosaurs were doing when they died. She decides they were having a party. We get lunch at the museum cafe. Grilled cheese and fruit. She drinks chocolate milk. Tells me this is the best day ever. I realize we do this every weekend now. Museums or parks or the library, just us. No gaming interrupting. No Devin saying he can't come because of raids. No disappointment on her face when Daddy doesn't show up. These moments are what family should be. What I wanted it to be all along. Simple, present, connected. That night, I read her 3 bedtime stories instead of 2. She picks the same book about a bear who can't sleep. We've read it 50 times. She knows all the words. Says them with me. I tuck her in with her favorite stuffed rabbit. Turn on her nightlight. She looks up at me with sleepy eyes and says she's happy. Just like that. Random and honest the way kids are. I kiss her forehead and tell her I'm happy too. I realize I mean it. Actually mean it. The journey from that desperate moment during Devin's gaming marathon to right now wasn't easy. Months of lawyers and court dates and paperwork. Months of explaining to my daughter why everything changed. Months of rebuilding our life from scratch. But we made it through. We're building something good together. Just the 2 of us. Our little family. And that's more than enough. That's everything. Well, that's another chaotic masterpiece. If you made it to the end, I owe you both thanks and an apology. Subscribe, because clearly you enjoy this level of nonsense.